Chapter 3. The Chronicles of the Disturbance Caused by Fortune-Telling. You have the face of Jonan, ill fortune with women. Eh? Tanjiro stopped his steps as he heard surprising words from the middle of the crowd. Zenitsu and Inosuke, who were beside him, stopped as well. Tanjiro glanced around with his eyes widened and realized that there was a short, elderly woman standing at the crossroads. The elderly woman had frost-colored hair, a face full of wrinkles, and was wearing a lavender-colored kimono. Just as Tanjiro threw her a doubtful gaze, the elderly woman lightly shook her head and said in a resolute manner, "Not you." Tanjiro turned his head towards Inosuke. "Not that boarhead either, it's the blondie." Eh? After hearing the elderly woman's words, Zenitsu, who was just zoning out at the side as though he was not involved, let up a shocked expression and pointed at his own nose with his index finger. Do you mean me?" "Yes." The elderly woman made a great show of nodding her head. "Granny, what do you mean by Jonin?" After Tanjiro asked that, the elderly woman sternly replied, "Jonin means a man landing himself into disaster because of his fateful encounter with women. That boy's face has that kind of look. What's this old hag rambling on about? Is her head screwed on right?" "Inosuke!" Tanjiro chided Inosuke. "You rude fella! I'm not an old hag!" The elderly woman roared with a terrifying raspy voice, and Tanjiro and Zenitsu were startled. "Then are you an old dude?" Inosuke, on the other hand, spoke in a dismissive manner. "It's all the same anyway. An old person is an old person." "I won't harm you. Do not approach any woman for the whole day today." The elderly woman seemed to have decided to ignore Inosuke. As though she was going to look through Zenitsu's eyes, the elderly woman stared at him, her gaze unwavering. "Avoid women as best as you can." And at the same time, she solemnly ordered him, "Also, it's better if you don't even speak to them." "That sounds kinda overboard." Zenitsu smiled while looking at Tanjiro for his agreement. However, what the elderly woman said later made his already slightly stiff smile freeze completely. "You'll die. If any woman was to fall for you, you will die, and it would be in a way that is as tragic as you can imagine it to be. Burn that into your brain." After she finished talking, the elderly woman started feeling around her waist area. She pulled out a tattered talisman. The yellowed, damaged surface of the paper had some words written on it, but it was illegible. "Even though this can only give you a peace of mind, take it." Forcing the talisman into Zenitsu's hand, the elderly lady left in front of the three of them. She did not ask for some exorbitant payment for the fortune-telling or for the talisman, but doing that only made the situation even more spine-chilling. Zenitsu was still frozen at where he was standing, as though he had lost his soul. "Zenitsu?" Tanjiro asked nervously out of concern. Terrible high-pitched sound. The ugly wail that could not be described rang out among the crowd. Asterisk. "I don't believe this. What is going on? Saying that I will die? So scary." With fear racing throughout his whole body, Zenitsu tightly grasped onto Tanjiro's haori, and all fluids that could flow were flowing down his face. "We're about to go back. Why would she say I'm going to die? It's weird. It's too weird." "Zenitsu." It was not as though Tanjiro could not understand his feeling. After finishing a mission outside the village, the trio went to rest at Household that had a wisteria emblem which was nearby. Only now were they going to return to the butterfly estate, and they were going to buy some souvenirs here since it was on the way. "If it's not too much trouble, please buy some snacks on your way back." The one who requested that was Kochu Shinobu, the owner of the butterfly estate. Ever since the mission on the Infinity Train, the three of them had been dedicated all their energy into training. Shinobu was probably worried about them. As expected of a large town, one can see all sorts of strange things just by simply looking around. At the beginning, Inosuke was unusually scared of the crowd and kept hiding behind Tanjiro.
"Hey, what's that? The horse is pulling a really large box. Why are those people's clothes so weird? There's a nice smell. Is it that tempura thing?" Right now, he seems to be extremely excited. This guy is so embarrassing, even though Zenitsu, who was the only one who was used to the city life, showed an impatient expression. He was seriously picking gifts for the girls at the butterfly estate. Thinking back to the kinds of snacks he saw at the butterfly estate and considering how this did not seem right or that did not seem right for very long, in the end, he went for the safest option, manju. After buying sufficient manju for the rest at the store that was widely popular among women, and just when they were about to return back to base, he was suddenly given a death sentence. Even other people would be completely panicked. I hate this. Why me? Why? Tell me why. You are. Zenitsu, calm down. Bye. This guy is so noisy. Just as Tanjiro was trying to console a sobbing Zenitsu, Inazuki said in disdain, if you're a man, stop chit-chatting and pluck up your courage. You're too much. Zenitsu looked back at him angrily. You're really too much, Inazuki. I get that as well, but you're really too much. I might die, right? And that person said I will die very tragically. Inazuki, you need to consider Zenitsu's feelings too. Tanjiro was sympathetic of Zenitsu and he tried to appeal to Inazuki. Anyone would be in a panic if they were suddenly told that, right? That's just the nonsensical words of an old hag. It's not nonsense, it's fortune-telling. Isn't that the same? Inazuki said coldly. Tanjiro guessed that he might not even know what fortune-telling was. Listen, Inazuki, fortune-telling is, and he planned to explain from the beginning. Whether it's accurate or not, it's just some kind of prediction in the end. Unexpectedly, Inazuki seems to have knowledge about it. You actually know, Inazuki? Yeah, I'm the boss after all. Hearing Tanjiro's praise, Inazuki puffed out his chest, saying it sure is a pain bringing such disappointing minions. Usually Zenitsu would have retorted with, boss, since when? I have no intention of being your minion. Right now, his expression was that of a small animal in a complete hopeless situation, and he was listening to the conversation of the two while shaking. Yeah. After thinking for a while, Tanjiro nodded his head and responded. Then he turned to face Zenitsu. What Inazuki said is reasonable, Zenitsu. His friend who got his name called jolted, then quietly sent a terrified gaze over. There's definitely not one fortune teller who is omnipotent, and there won't be one. If such a person exists, then they would be a god, not a human. Because of the sudden scare, not only Zenitsu, even Tanjiro got flustered. If one just treated the entire thing as just a mere prediction, then there was no need to be overly worried. Hearing Tanjiro's words, you're right, Zenitsu finally showed a relieved expression. He sniffed and said, now that you mention it, that old granny seems suspicious. She must be a scam. You mean that fortune teller at the crossroads with excellent divination skills? Suddenly the cheerful voice of a girl overpowered what Zenitsu was saying. Zenitsu froze and immediately hid behind Tanjiro. Tanjiro and Inazuki turned their heads towards the source of the voice, and they saw two girls dressed in elegant clothing chatting and walking over. Yeah, I heard she a fortune teller with a head of white hair and a lavender-colored kimono. She's that spot on. Yes, it seems so. My friend followed that fortune teller's advice and very quickly found her soulmate, and they even got engaged in half a month. That's great. But there seemed to be people who did not heed her warning and got injured because of that. Goodness, that's horrifying. You'll be fine as long as you follow her orders. But I don't see anyone who looks like her. Really, where did she go? The cute girls were looking around for the fortune teller. Zenitsu's gaze was locked on the two of them, but he did not show his usual lewd, or more accurately, infatuated expression. His ashen face was stiff like that of a wax figurine, and cold sweat was flowing down his forehead. On top of that, a strange kara sound could be heard. Turns out it was the sound of his teeth chattering. This is bad. Zen, right at the moment when Tanjiro was about to remind Zenitsu about what they talked about earlier, Yarhead, Zenitsu let out a terrible scream that sounded like a chicken being crushed to death. The eyes of people around them focused on him. The two girls let out a yelp in fright and they bolted off as